one isn't able to attend, I can just forward this recording to you guys later. All right, so welcome to today's closer training. As I understand, we have a closer.
That was the music playing. I don't know why it started. No, don't worry about it. How do we talk to them? We don't have a speaker, do we? We can only listen.
So just some basic housekeeping. If you guys don't have any questions, please try to keep your phone or mic on mute. And if you do have questions, you can unmute yourself and then ask the question. And if you do get another phone call, hang up and then take the phone call instead of putting us on hold, or else we're going to hear the hold music. I do hear a lot of background noise, so if you guys could just mute your phones or mic.
We're not on the phone. Hello?
Hi.
Oh, can you hear me?
I can hear you.
Okay, I'm sorry. I apologize. This is Dag and Ren. In
Hello.
Newport. Hi. Okay, so we'll just mute ourselves, and then we'll do the questions like you said, Tiana.
Yes.
Okay.
All right. Yeah, so as I was saying, from what I understand, you guys have a closer that's newly hired in the room, along with other employees who have already worked in LendingQB. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. So for the employees familiar with LendingQB, they may already be knowledgeable about most of the training or some parts of the training, but just bear with me as we go over these topics again. It might also be a good refresher for you as well. So the URL to log into LendingQB is secure.lendingqb.com. You will be taken to this login screen right here. Currently, LendingQB only runs on Internet Explorer, but cross-browser compatibility is something scheduled for later this year. So by 2017, hopefully you'll be able to run LendingQB on Chrome, Safari, and all the other browsers that you guys use. All right, so once I log in, the first screen that will appear looks like this. I'm logged in as an administrator, so I have access to all these configuration links on the left-hand side. But this will look different for you in that this list will be a lot shorter, and that is expected. You will have the permissions you need to do your job. So let's talk about finding loans in the system. There are three main ways, and you may use all three or just primarily rely on one. The first method is through your pipeline view, which is this middle section right here. These blue column headers are sortable, so I can click on them. Click on one of them, for example, borrower last name, and then the loans will sort ascending or descending depending on how many times I click it. So if I know their name, I can sort by their name, and then I can locate the loan file easily. There is also a search feature up here at the top. So I can search by any one of these criteria, most common probably being loan number and last name. If I type in an asterisk, that will be partial search. So if I know it starts with maybe like an ST, I can type in an asterisk and then hit go, and then it's going to show me all my loan files in which there is ST in the borrower's last name. Same concept can be used for loan number as well for a partial search. If I want to, so once I search, all of the results that meet the search criteria will be listed down here. If I want to return back to my pipeline, I can click on this pipeline link at the upper right corner, and that will take me back to my pipeline screen right here. The second way, or rather the third way, is by clicking the Find Loan link, and that's located right here. And that will take me to the same screen I was on previously. But let's say that I'm not looking for a specific loan, I'm looking for a group of loans. I can use these drop-downs to search those group of loans. So I can locate loans within a certain branch, loans that are currently in a certain loan status, even by status date. So I can do loans that are opened within the last 7 days, for example, that are FHA. So I can use these drop-downs to locate a group of loans. If I want to see loans that are assigned to a certain person, I can use these fields over here. So let's say I want to see loans that are assigned to a certain loan officer. I'll locate that loan officer, role, click on Pick User, and then search for that loan officer. So I want to see all loans assigned to Donna Moore. I can click on this and then hit search. And then all loan files assigned to her as the loan officer will appear down here under my search results. And I can do this for several people as well. So I can do loan officer and processor, for example, at the same time. Are there any questions about searching for loan files?
Yeah.
All right, so I'm going to return to my pipeline, and now let's talk about workflow for a bit. These pipeline views are all running off a custom report created by your company. And these pipeline views should be set up to show what you need to work on and when. So each role should theoretically have a different pipeline view because each role is interested in different loans, in different loan statuses, and so forth. So this pipeline view is live. You can refresh it throughout the day to see new loans coming in that you need to work on. When you log in for the very, very first time, the default pipeline view will be called My Pipeline, and it's going to be using this simple pipeline custom report. And you can change this. And to do that, I will click the Change link right here, and I can name my pipeline tab to whatever I want it to be. So notice I've renamed it from Simple Pipeline to Active Pipeline because I want this pipeline to show loans that I need to actively work on. Once I do that, I can then select the report that I want to use. So you can see your company has already created a long list of custom reports that you can select from. And if I just select any one of these, let's just do loans clear to close, for example. I click on the Choose link, and then notice the loans that appear, the column headers at the top, they've all changed because the custom report that I selected has different fields at the top, different sorting orders, and even different grouping. If in my company I wear multiple hats, maybe I also am responsible for funding loans. Maybe I want to create a separate pipeline view that shows loans that need to be funded. I can click on this plus icon, and that will allow me to add another pipeline view. So I'm just going to randomly choose one just so you can get an idea. So notice I now have two pipeline tabs to show different views, right? And I can drag and drop these pipeline tabs in the order I want so I can work the most effectively. All right. So once you're done creating your pipeline views, you can just toggle between the two. And then once it's set, it's going to be set every time you log in. So you don't have to reset your pipeline views every time you log in. So my recommendation to you is take a look at the reports that have already been created, test them out, apply them to your pipeline view. If they look good, great. If they need adjustments, contact your administrator. So it's just important to keep communication open with your administrator so these reports and pipeline views allow you to work the most effectively. Okay? All right, so
just so they know, I've created a whole bunch of pipeline views for closing, underwriting, different stuff. If they need to know which one will work best for them, they just need to email. This is Chad. They just need to email me.
Perfect. Yeah, so Chad should know which pipeline view has been created for your role and which ones you should use. So email him if you have any questions. All right. To edit a loan file, simply click on the loan number and then click on the edit link, and that will load up the loan file. I've already created one for the purpose of today's training. And for first-time users, the first thing you will see when you log in and open a loan file is all of these folders will be expanded. So it will be a very long list of folders and pages within those folders. So what I recommend is for you to minimize all of these loan folders as such, just by clicking the minimize icon. And then going down here to this link right here called Save Menu Layout. And if I click it, it's going to say menu layout saved. And that means the next time I open a loan file, this folder, excuse me, this folder layout will be saved depending on my last saved layout. And then it may take you a few days to find your rhythm, but after a few days of working in LendingQB, you'll identify the folders that you work in most often. So let's just say I work always in the funding folder. I can then expand this folder and then click Save Menu Layout. And then next time I log in, everything will be minimized except for the folder I work in most, right? Another navigation tool I want to point out is the Favorites folder. And this folder will contain all the pages that you have favorited. And this is useful if you work on a few pages within numerous folders. So instead of having to hop around multiple folders just to find those one-off pages that you need to review information in, you can just click on the star icon next to that page. For example, if I click the star icon next to Lender Credit Discount, it's going to automatically add it to my favorites folder. And once it's in my favorites folder, I can drag and drop the pages to reorder them in whatever order I want. And if I want to unfavorite a page, simply deselect the icon and it will remove it from the favorites folder. Okay, so this is a great tool to use. So you can just work off of like one favorites folder rather than having to jump between 5 different folders. All right. The very first screen that users will be taken to when they open a loan file is this screen right here. But before I start reviewing a loan file, there are a couple things that I will want to look at, and they are going to be at the very upper left-hand corner. So as you can see, this the system is identifying that a 0% tolerance violation has been detected. Other messages you might see are 10% tolerance violation detected and an APR violation detected, and we'll talk about those things separately. So LendingQB is an end-to-end solution. So this is the same system that loan officers originate in. It's the same system that processors and underwriters work on. And so this offers several benefits. You're all looking at the same database of records and information. And the system is monitoring for compliance throughout the whole loan process. So as you can see, there's that 0% tolerance violation, and it isn't something I can disclose my way out of. But it's important to know going into docs because there's probably a cure I need to be aware of. And because it's end-to-end, the system is already calculating that cost to cure, and it's already populating it into the loan file for me. If I see a 10% tolerance violation up there, it's possible I'm not ready for docs yet. I may need to redisclose. So pay attention to any warnings up here in red and act accordingly. If you're not sure what those warnings mean, ask someone. For APR violations, you'll see a similar red warning up here, but it'll also display as a pop-up message every time I open a loan file. So if I were to open this file and there was an APR violation, there would be a pop-up message saying APR tolerance violation detected or something like that. So you'll always be aware of those. So basically, LendingQB is making things easier for you by alerting you of possible violations. All right, so moving on. Once this loan gets to you to draw docs, if everyone who precedes you has done their job and entered everything they're supposed to enter on a loan file completely and accurately, it should only take you about 30 minutes to draw docs after you get over, of course, the initial learning curve. Because the loan officer entered in the data to start with, then the processor came to validate the data, added more information, the underwriter came, validated information again, added more data, and so forth. So by the time the file gets to you, all the information, or rather most of the information, should already be there. And although the data should be correct, there are a few things you will want to recheck, so I will go over those areas with you in this training today. All right, so after you've checked the warnings up here and you've decided you're ready for docs, the next thing that I would check is the general screen. It's added to my favorites already, but originally the screen will be located within your status folder right here, but I've already favorited. So the first thing I want to check is the loan expiration date. This file is actually not locked yet, but if it was, this rate lock expiration date would have been filled in. So you want to make sure that your lock expiration date exceeds your estimated closing date. And the system will initially auto-calculate this estimated closing date for you, but once, and in the initial stages that's fine, but once you reach this point, this lock checkbox should be marked and the actual estimated closing date should be entered in for several reasons. The main reason being is that it's used to calculate your per diem. But notice if I unlock this checkbox, the system will auto-calculate this estimated closing date. But once I have a more accurate idea of what it should be, I should really lock this checkbox and enter in what that actual estimated closing date should be. Scrolling down further, this is the list of loan statuses in the life cycle of the loan. A bulk of these dates should already be filled out by the time the loan gets to you. Moving down here, I want to point out this area called disclosure document dates. You'll notice that all of these dates are grayed out, and what grayed out means in the system is that it's being auto-calculated from some other date field in the loan file. And most of these date fields will populate from the status dates above, and you shouldn't need to touch them with the exception of your document date right here. So if your doc vendor will use today's date, but if your documents should be dated a different date, the exception is mark the lock checkbox next to the date you want to manually edit, and then enter in the desired document date. Excuse me. But generally, all the other dates, all the other lock checkboxes should be left unmarked, and you should just be using our auto calculations. Moving down are two sections, the loan estimate section and the closing disclosures section. Every time a LE is generated using the seamless document integration, a record will automatically be created, and these fields will be automatically populated. So issue date, if I sent out my disclosures for online signing, the delivery method will be email. Once the borrower signs the docs back and we get it, the receive date will be auto-populated as well. The only thing you need to do is mark the initial checkbox. Our system's not able to detect which one was actually the initial LE, so you will need to go in and mark that. And later, when you create your closing disclosures, those records will be auto-populated down here as well. You can also manually add your own records if you're not using the seamless integration. But once again, you will be responsible for marking which was your initial preview and final closing disclosure. All right. So those are the key areas on the general screen that you will be reviewing. The next screen that we will talk about is the agent screen, which is in the status folder. I will not save my changes. All right. So this screen is separated into two sections. The first section up here is your internal assignments. So these are internal employees that have been assigned to work on this loan file. And then depending on your workflow, if you're responsible for picking up a loan and assigning it to yourself, you're going to just click on the assign link next to your role, locate your name, and then assign yourself to the loan file by just clicking on your name. Otherwise, if someone else is going to be assigning you to the loan file, this will already have been done. You should see yourself already assigned to the loan file. The second section down here is everything else. It's called your official contact list. And if everyone before you has been entering contact information as it becomes known, most of this information will be filled out for you already. If you need to add additional contacts, you can click on the Add People button, select the desired contact type, for example, and then hit the Pick from Contacts link. And if it's in your corporate database of contacts, you can just select the desired contact. Otherwise, you can enter in the information manually over here. And if you need to make any changes to any of these contacts, for example, maybe there's missing gaps that you want to fill in, just click on the edit link to the right of the contact you want to edit, and then fill in the missing information. All right. And it's important that this is filled out in its entirety because it does populate to other areas in the loan file as well as populates to your disclosures. So this information needs to be complete and correct or your disclosures might be affected. All right, so moving on to the loan application folder. This folder can be thought of as a deconstructed 1003. Each of the screens has like a snippet of the 1003, and if you were to go through all these screens and fill it out, it would result in a completed 1003. But as a closer, you'll probably only be reviewing 4 of the screens, which is why I favorited 4. I don't want to always have this long loan application folder expanded. I'm just going to favorite these 4 screens right here. All right, so the first screen is this loan info screen, and has basic information about purchase price, note rate, term, loan amount, down payment, and so forth. But the main thing you'll probably be validating is the property type. You'll want to make sure that this is set correctly, but because it is going to affect the riders that you get. This bottom area has to do with qualifying debt ratios, but this is not the screen that I recommend you validate and check this information. There's going to be a separate page for that, which I'll go over. So really just check the property type, make sure it's correct. Everything else should have been set correctly by the underwriter or the lock desk. The next screen is called Subject Property Description. Once again, address will have been validated, but you should go in and double check that this address is displaying correctly. Entering in a zip code will auto-populate the correct state, city, and county. So shortcut, just enter in the zip code to auto-populate everything else. Make sure your legal description and mineral rights fields are filled out correctly. Your administrator can template these items, so it looks like that this C preliminary title report has been templated, so this should be appearing on all your loan files. If you need the short legal description, you can go into eDocs, find the form, and then copy and paste it directly into here so you don't have to manually type it in. All right. If it's a condo or PUD, enter in the project name so it prints out correctly on your rider. The processor will actually have pulled the flood cert, so you'll be able to see if it is, if flood insurance is needed, if it is in a flood zone, and so forth, right here. And then add the parcel ID if necessary. For the borrower info screen, this is pretty straightforward, but a couple things to note. The name entered in right here, David C. Test Case, this is how the name will appear on all the signature lines of your final loan doc. So this needs to be consistent with your vesting. Any AKAs on the credit report that was pulled by the LO will be automatically populated to this link right here. Clicking this link will open up a pop-up. So any aliases from the credit report will auto-populate here, but you can add additional aliases by just typing in the text and then clicking add, and that will add it to this list right here. And you can also delete any duplicates as applicable. And then the power of attorney name can be entered here. So this will tell the doc vendor that there is a POA and how it should appear on the signature line. Okay. All right, so now let's address non-borrowing spouses. So it shows that David is married, but there is no co-borrower married. If I move over to the title and estate page, it will tell the story. It'll show that Donna Test Case is only going to be appearing as a title-only borrower. So we want to still have her entered in on the loan file, so she appears, her name appears on the signature lines and other relevant fields. And to do that, all I need to do is click on this Add Title Only Borrower link, and then I can enter in her name and social security email address as applicable, so it populates correctly on my documents. Down here, seller info. If the seller information had been entered in correctly in my agent screen, I can just click on Populate from Agents, and the information will auto-populate. If it isn't, then I'll just, well, I should put a seller. Yeah, if I click Populate from Agents, the seller name and address will auto-populate. Otherwise, I'll need to manually input this information. All right. And so that is it for the loan application folder. The next folder that we are going to take a look at is the funding folder, which is down here. So the funding folder, long list of screens, but you will need to go through most of these. So I recommend just keeping it expanded. But once again, it's up to you. You can choose to just favorite all these screens and just work off of one favorites folder. Otherwise, you can work off of your favorites folder in addition to the funding folder down here. All right, the first screen that I will go to is the lender credits / discount screen. And this is where all of your general lender credits and discounts will be handled. At the top, you'll notice that there are two calculation methods. The first is set manually, and the second is calculate from front-end rate lock. If calculate from front-end rate lock is selected, that means pricing will flow over from the front-end rate lock screen, and any adjustments made on that screen will update this page as well. Set manually means that this page is not linked to the front-end rate lock screen, and any changes made will need to be done manually on this screen. They won't flow over from the front-end rate lock screen. So it looks like you guys have it set to calculate from front-end rate lock, but once again, I recommend working with your administrator to determine which calculation your company will be using. All right, so let's just say you are using calculate from front-end rate lock. Down here, I can set my general credit limit. So I can cap my general credit based on these drop-down options. So if I wanted to cap it based off of origination charges, I can mark that, and it'll cap it at $2,700. Total closing cost, I'll cap it at this amount. If I want to manually set the cap, I can set it to manual and then enter in whatever that cap should be. If I don't want any credit, I can put no credit, and notice these amounts zero out. And if there's no limit, then just select no limit, and this field will not be filled out. So, all right, so moving on. All right, so down here, this is where you indicate if you're disclosing the credit on the LE or your CD. So if you want to play it safe, display nothing on your LE and then later disclose it on the CD. You can just do so by these drop downs down here. So once again, discuss internally and make sure everyone is on the same page with how this screen will be filled out, how you guys will be disclosing credits on the LE versus the CD and so forth. All right. Any tolerance tiers will be auto-calculated down here, so it looks like I have a 650 for that 0% tolerance. But once again, I can also mark these lock checkboxes and make any manual changes. Otherwise, leave it unmarked and it will use the auto-calculations. The second screen is the non-P&I housing expense screen, and this is going to allow me to calculate everything related to escrows, impounds, and prepaids. If you notice at the top, this screen is separated into 4 tabs, and you have the option of completing the first 3 tabs, or you can directly skip to the 4th tab, which will contain all of the information from the first 3 tabs. But I'm going to go over each of these 3 tabs so you can see what they look like. The amounts tab will allow you to enter in the monthly values for any insurance, taxes, and anything else that needs to be accounted for. Maybe during the processing phase, you were using a factor maybe to calculate, but now that you're ready for disclosures, you have the true monthly amount, so you might just clear out the factor, and then over here you might want to enter in the actual dollar amount now that you know it, or you can do a combination of both. On the right side, this will be where you can mark items as being escrowed. And these should already be templated or configured via the fee service, which is something set up by your administrator. So you shouldn't need to touch these checkboxes, but in the event that you do, you can deselect or select these checkboxes. All right, moving on to the prepaids. This allows you to indicate any insurance or taxes that will need to be paid at closing. So right here, if it needs to be prepaid, mark the various checkboxes and then indicate the number of months prepaid. And then it'll indicate the prepaid amounts over here. So that's prepaid. Escrow impounds, the The escrow checkboxes are already pulling over from the previous tab. So you just need to make sure that the cushion months are entered correctly. And the months reserved are actually going to be auto-calculated based off of your disbursement schedule. And once again, all of this should be either templated or set up via your fee service. So your reserves cushions, these should all be pre-populated as well. Down here, you have the auto-calculated aggregate escrow adjustment. So you can review this. And then finally, the details tab is just encapsulates all the information from the first 3 tabs. So if you wanted to, you could skip to the details tab and then enter and verify all the information over here. Okay. So as you can see, it has like the prepaid months, escrow checkboxes, the monthly amounts, and so forth. So you can review all that information over here. So you can see that there is a calculation source dropdown. Notice when I have it set to calculator mode, the disbursements down here are auto-populated down here for me. And this disbursement schedule is auto-calculated based off of this disbursement schedule right here, as well as the information up here. So as you can see, I'm prepaying the 12 months. So at closing, I have my 12 months. And then February, after closing, I have it in this record over here. And then over here in the disbursement schedule, I can indicate when the payments will be made. If I select monthly, notice ones will auto-populate in every single month, and my disbursement schedule will auto-populate accordingly. If I select annually, these fields open up, and I'm able to, let me just clear out these ones. I'm able to enter in the number of months in the months where they are due. So I can do like 6/6 and disbursement schedule, once again, auto-populates. There's also a third option called annually and closing month, and this one's kind of cool. It will auto-populate the 12 based off of your closing month. So if I change my closing date, let's say I change it to March, you'll notice that the 12 will automatically jump to March because I've updated my estimated closing date. Let me set this back to 15. All right, so yeah, use this drop down to accurately indicate when the amounts are due. All right. And if I want more control over this disbursement schedule, what I do is I set the calculation source from calculated to disbursements, and you'll notice a couple things happen. These fields become grayed out. I can't edit it anymore, but I'm now able to make changes to my disbursements right here. So maybe it's not due on the 1st, it's due on the 15th. I can make any necessary changes on this. What I don't recommend doing is going backwards. So you can go from calculator to disbursements, that's fine. But if you go from disbursements back to calculator, you'll notice that all of those manual changes I made while in disbursements mode are wiped out because it's now smacking in what was auto-calculated by the system. So that 215 is now reverted back to 21. So stick to calculator mode. And if you need to make any changes, put it to disbursements and make any changes, but don't ever go backwards or else you'll lose that information. Okay? All right. And then each individual insurance or property tax is handled the same way. I can just minimize and then go to the next item I want to review and then maximize that. And then it'll show you if there's anything entered in it in this row right here. So nothing in school taxes because it says 0, but there's something in property taxes, so it'll display a dollar amount. So I'll know what needs to be reviewed. All right, borrower responsible closing cost screen. This screen should be pretty accurate, but if you need to make any changes to the dollar amount, simply click on this C button, and it will open up this editor. So you can make any changes to the amounts. You can calculate it as a percentage off of a basis plus the flat amount. You can do just a flat amount, or you can do percent only. And the UI will update depending on which drop-down you select. So just mark the applicable one, enter in the correct dollar amount, and save your changes. And once again, this screen is another example of the importance of completing the agent screen accurately. Notice that the payees are already linked to the fee because the agent screen has been filled out correctly. So you can go through and make sure everything is linked to the correct payee. If notice right here, flood provider, it hasn't been linked. So if I want to link it to a contact or add a contact if it hasn't been added, I don't have to go back to the agent screen. I can just click on this person icon and then search for my desired flood provider. So let's just do service link. I'll click select, and it's going to ask me, or it's going to tell me selecting this contact will add it to my official contact list. I'm going to click OK, and then notice it's linked to this company. And if I go to my agent screen, that flood contact will have auto-populated. So it's killing two birds with one stone by clicking this icon to link the contact and add it to my agent screen. All right. I shouldn't need to change any of these checkboxes on my left. The DFLP, which stands for deducted from loan proceeds, which will help calculate funding figures, should be auto-populated based off of either your templates or your fee service. Third party or affiliate, if contacts are set up correctly, these will be correctly marked for you. Can shop should also be set up correctly for you. And the can shop and did shop checkboxes will affect your tolerance calculations. So just make sure those are correct and make sure who is paying for the fee and when it's being paid is also correct as well. And then down here, these tabs right here are other tools you can use to see how figures are changing as you update this screen. So notice if I click on lender and seller paid totals, it's auto-calculating the lender paid fees as well as the seller paid fees. So as I'm updating these paid buys, these fields would be auto-calculating as well. And then if I want to see my details of transaction, I can just click on this tab, review it, and if I'm done, I can just minimize it by clicking this minimize tab, and then it will collapse downwards. For the seller responsible closing cost screen, you may or may not use this page. It depends on the customary practice of where you lend. So seller responsible should not be confused with seller paid items. They're not the same thing. Seller responsible are fees that by state regulation or customary practice the seller pays. So this page works just like the borrower responsible closing cost screen. You just click add, select your fee, and then the UI is similar to the borrower responsible screen. So once again, you may or may not use this screen. I would contact your administrator if you're not sure. All right. And then moving down to the adjustments and other credits, this will hold everything else. Up here at the top, I can enter in a lump sum for my seller credit. So back on the responsible closing cost screen, you have the option to itemize fees as seller paid, but you don't have to itemize if you don't want to. You can just choose to enter in a lump seller credit over here if you wanted to. Just make sure you're not entering in both places or you're double counting it, okay? And then you can enter in additional credits as well. It looks like this person entered in a builder credit. You can select the from, the to, and the amount, and whether you want to include it in your 1003 details or not. And it looks like someone put a typo, so I'm going to fix it. And you want to make sure that these are spelled out correctly because it will populate to your CD as such, so you want to fix any typos. For prorations, you can enter in the paid through dates. Let's see. And then the system will auto-calculate the paid from and paid to based off of the paid through date entered as well as the closing date. So it's going to say from seller to borrower. If it had been like after the closing date, sorry, that's not after. You'll notice it updates from borrower to seller. At this time, we can't auto-calculate the amount, so this will have to be manually entered in. Okay. And then down here, just details of transaction that you can review. And then, so this is a summary of all that information. You can see my prorations have populated here. from borrower to seller. If it had been from seller to borrower, it would appear down here. So you can just review this information, make sure it is appearing correctly. And then you can move on to your closing disclosure screen right underneath. So we're just going down this list in wizard format. So this is the order you can review information, and that's fine. Okay, so one thing to clarify, there is no closing disclosure that will be available for printing directly within LendingQB. You will need to utilize one of the integrated doc vendors to generate your CD. So you cannot go to the print list and find the CD. It does not exist, okay? The closing disclosure screen just serves as a representation of what your CD would look like, but you will need to use a doc vendor, whether it be DocMagic or IDS or Docutech, to generate your closing disclosure. And one reason is that it forces users to use the doc vendor, which runs a compliance audit on the loan information before the CD can be generated. So it just adds that extra level of compliance checks to make sure that everything is good. Okay. So once again, on the screen, it just serves as a preview of what the CD will look like. So you can scroll through this. Notice I can't make any changes because it's just a preview, but if I need to make any changes, I can just hyperlink directly to the screen. So if any of these fees look incorrect, just click borrower responsible closing costs, and it'll take you right to the page where I can make those changes, and then I can go back to my CD screen and then make sure that it's reflecting correctly. Okay. So this looks just like the CD, and so forth. And then down here, once again, this is another example of why agents should be filled out correctly. If these contacts had been completed, all of this information would have been pre-populated for me. If they're not, I can either go back to my agent screen and enter in the information, or I can just click Set Manually, and that will open up these fields for editing. Okay. All right. And then I might also go to my upfront MIP / funding fee screen. And this screen, FYI, can also be accessed through the non-P&I housing expense screen. So if I go back to that screen, notice for mortgage insurance, I can click on upfront MIP screen, and that will take me to that screen. Because I can't manually edit this information, I'll have to go to the screen to make any updates. If this was, for example, an FHA loan, it is conventional right now, but if it was FHA or VA, these upfront and monthly MI factors will have auto-populated, as well as any renewal or cancellation information. So these fields and these fields right here should be auto-populated based off of my registered loan program. And when the underwriters orders the MI cert, the information over here will be filled out as well. So they will update the information as needed, but it's just something you'll want to double check to make sure it's appearing correctly. At this point, I'm ready to create the closing disclosure to go out. And to do that, all I need to do is go to the services folder. The services folder will house most of our third-party integrations. So you can see we have links to order DO, DULP, total scorecard, compliance ease, flood cert, and so forth. But for our purposes, you'll just need to click on the links to generate docs. And one thing I noticed when I was testing this earlier was that the username and password stored on the back end was incorrect. I'm not sure if anyone is an administrator that is on this call that is able to update those credentials to be correct, so I can move forward with generating docs.
For which user are you logged in as?
I am logged in as, well, you can't access the account, but the credentials that it's using are under general settings. So I'm trying to access, well, are you guys using IDS or DocMagic? I noticed there's both enabled.
All right. They change, IDS changed it where it's user specific, and that disclosures doesn't work anymore.
Okay. Are you able to temporarily just update maybe like these two to something that does work?
Sure. Hang on.
Okay. All right. I'm going to exit out, so just let me know when you've made the changes.
Are you under branches?
You go to General Settings, hit the Options tab, and then there's an Edit Configuration link next to Doc Generation, and that will be where you enter in the credentials.
Let me make sure that works. That ID that I put in works before.
I mean, otherwise, I can just log into another administrator account that has the correct credentials.
I'll put it in there. Hold on. I just need to check and make sure that it's going to work.
Okay, no problem.
All right. You should be good.
Okay, let me close and reopen the loan file then. Let's see. It's still giving me an invalid username. Let me try the other one. Okay, so this one works. Perfect. All right, so package type, you can select CD. The loan program will already have been selected for you, so you can just click Run Audit. And then at this point in time, the information is getting sent to IDS. IDS is actually running the audit on their end, and they're returning information back to us in this window. So any results that come back will be coming directly from IDS and not LendingQB. I'll just give it a few seconds to think. All right, so these are my audit results. Any fatals would say fatal in red, and it would be displayed at the top. Otherwise, you can review these criticals and warnings they're not like a hard stop. I can still click on the next button, but if there was a fatal, I would have to resolve those, and this next button will be grayed out. So I'm just going to click next, and it's going to take me to the screen right here. So I can, if I'm ready to send it out, I can mark these send e-disclosures. However, if I just want to preview it to make sure that it's appearing correctly, then just click on the create documents button, and then that will just generate a preview of the documents. I'm not sure why it's taking so long. I don't think it normally does. All right. In any case, there will be like a link to preview your docs, and you can click it and open it. And if it looks good, you would just go through the same steps again, run audit, but this time you would mark the send e-disclosures checkbox and then click create documents, and then those the CD will be sent to the borrower for review. All right. So now that the CD is out for review, I can finish reviewing the rest of the information. So going back to the funding folder, so on the title and vesting screen, you can enter in, if it hasn't already been entered by your processor, the parcel ID, your property, your tax message, for example, first installment paid, second installment due, or all installments paid, and so forth, whatever that message is. Any required endorsements. If you charge the same on each file, your administrator can template it. Otherwise, you'll have to manually enter it in for each file, and so forth. For the vesting, you'll see that this information is pulling already from the that screen we were on previously, the title and estate screen. So this may be good. This may be all that needs to print out. But if you need to update and add more information to this field, you can click on the lock checkbox and then add in any additional verbiage as required. Right. Another section that should be reviewed is the trust section. I recommend testing this with IDS. Make sure you know how this information is populating on your forms and so forth. Down here, this is another chance to add your title-only borrower if you didn't already do that on the title and estate screen. On the seller info screen, once again, this is also populated from the title and estate screen, but if I want to make any changes, I can do that here as well. Security instrument, just verify that these fields are correct if you're lending in any of these states. And then the next screen is the conditions screen. This will actually open up the list of conditions in a separate window, so you can review conditions while navigating through the loan file. And any conditions that are still active and not hidden will populate to your lender instructions. So you can see the status will show if it's active. If it was signed off, it would say closed. And then, oops, I closed it. And then if I make this bigger, there's a hidden column, and then I can mark whether the condition is hidden or not. And it will also, if it has been signed off, it will show when it was signed off and by who. Any conditions left over should really just be your prior to funding conditions, things that you will be responsible for signing off. Hidden conditions are seen by internal users that have permission to see hidden conditions. So you should know who in your company has access to these hidden conditions, and that will dictate whether you should mark them as hidden or not. But once again, anything active and not hidden will appear on your lender instructions. There may be a need to add additional conditions, and there are a few ways to do that. You can add one-off conditions just by clicking add condition, and you can just fill in these fields to add a single condition. So subject, who is assigned to, and so forth. We'll just try it out. So test, click OK, and that will add this condition right here. If I want to insert multiple conditions from a pick list, I can click on Insert Multiple Conditions, and this will load up your pick list. And this is a list of conditions that your administrators have configured. So if you need to make any changes or updates or add additional conditions to this pick list, you can let them know. It is a long list, but up here at the top, you can shorten this list by these filters. So maybe I want to see, I don't know, all conditions associated with the appraisal category. Okay, maybe that was a bad one. PTF. Okay, PTF. Okay, so if I want to see all conditions with the PDF condition category, I can select PTF, and maybe I want to see only PTF conditions related to appraisal property. I can just use these two filters, and you can see that this list has shortened considerably. Then I can just mark the checkbox or check boxes next to the conditions I want to add and click Insert right here, and then that will add those conditions to the list. If I have any condition templates created, I can click Import Conditions from Template, select that condition template. It doesn't look like you guys have any created, but if, for example, I selected this one, it will pull over all of the conditions in that template over, so I don't have to manually go through and add each one. I can just import them from a condition template. So contact your administrator if that's something you're interested in utilizing. Okay, so those are the 3 ways to add conditions. All right. And once again, when the CD is good and I'm ready to generate my closing docs, once again, I can go to my services folder. I can go to my generate docs link, and I can select my closing package and go through the same steps again, just as I did before with my CD. And once docs are drawn, the last thing you'll need to do is to go to the general screen, and if you recall, this contained our list of loan statuses, and then you'll just need to put in today's date in the docs out status, and that will push the status from whatever it was before, from, let's just say, clear to close to docs out. So notice right here, the loan status is now docs out. And this will essentially trigger the loan, if it's not you or someone else, to work on the loan file now. It's now in their hands, and they can tell that by just the changing in the loan status. Okay. At this point, I'm not sure if you want me to cover like the funding portion, or is this a good stopping point for what they need to do? I'm not sure if Chad can advise on that.
I don't know. I don't know if one of the closers wants to give a yes or no on that or not. I don't think they need to see the funding.
Hey, Chad, we're gonna have to get with Dwayne to see how he wants us to do it. Whether he wants us to manually keep doing it the way we've been doing it.
Okay. All right. I would imagine it's not going to change. So.
I don't think it is either, because he wants us to go in there and put the closing instructions, the note, and do that worksheet for him. So I can't see it changing.
I don't think he's planning on anything changing on his end. So does anybody, I guess, no, we don't need to see that. And
oh.
Any questions?
The manner that it was showing the way the title was being held, all these investors are coming back on it if you don't have like husband and wife or single person, whatever.
That just showed us joint tenants.
So, yeah, you can change.
They need to choose the correct thing.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, and my question, where it's up there where it says zero tolerance cure, how do we know where to go to find out what's causing that tolerance?
Good question. So one screen you might want to consider favoriting is, it's in the disclosures folder and it's called Fee Audit. So if I click this, it will show me a side-by-side comparison of like my last disclosed values versus my current values. So you can see right here that it's identified what fees are zero tolerance through this text right here, and anything in red. So it says like this has changed by 100. I think that's it. Everything else is black, which means it's good.
Well, one of the things,
same.
I'm sorry, one of the things that you were saying was you can either put all the seller credit in one place or you can break it down. Well, if you don't break it down, how are you going to know what seller fees or APR fees?
Yeah, so if the borrower responsible closing costs, you can leave it as borrower paid, but then credit them on the adjustments and other credit screen. Or you can choose, so you can choose to leave it as borrower paid and then just enter in the lump seller credit, or you can just itemize it by marking
APR.
If you lump it into one, like a $5,000 seller credit, that $5,000 is going to affect the APR because there's APR fees that will be included in that. So I don't understand why you're telling them it's okay to lump sum it when it's going to affect the APR.
We have to break it down. We have to show which fees, who's paying what, and then when it's an APR fee, we have to show that it's an APR, which affects the ending APR.
So I think our processors and LOs have been told wrong, because if there is a seller credit or lender credit in a large amount that all those fees are applied, then there's APR fees applied, and that affects the APR.
Okay. Let me get back to my team on that and see what they say in terms of best practices then.
I mean, we would love to do it as one lump sum, but I can tell you that doesn't work with these investors. We then had to manually go in there and type up a sheet telling them what fees did you are applying towards your APR fees. And we had to literally go in there and manually fill out a sheet for them to show that.
So if your investors are wanting like an itemization, then it's probably better to just itemize it on the borrower responsible closing costs then.
Okay. Well, our processors need to know this. Is this how y'all trained them?
Yeah, because I mean, I sat through another training with the processors on the LE, and
is this how
I'm pretty sure y'all told them they could lump sum it.
Oh, they did?
And I mean, we told them here that they can't, because it does affect the APR if there's not enough non-APR fees to accumulate that whole credit.
Okay. Yeah, I'll forward this to my team, and maybe we'll need to revise what we say in our trainings then.
Okay.
I need to ask you something. This is Jan Davis, and we have a loan. It was originally loaded in as a conventional loan, and then it was changed to FHA. So it was disclosed with an LE, and it went through Doc Magic. There was a box that wasn't checked in LendingQB for the change of circumstance to click the amount of the MIP. The MIP showed on the LE, but since the box was not checked, it flowed through that was an unacceptable change of circumstance, and that was a zero tolerance, and that the lender should pay the $5,400 funding fee. And it sailed on through and closed, and I am only on the back end, on the shipping part, but I'm trying to understand, yes, that screen right there. Nobody seems to have been told, like the processors or whoever does these, that they are supposed to go and check what applies to their change of circumstance. So it will acknowledge it when it issues an LE. So one was done. So if it sends from LQB out to DocMagic or to IDS, would this person have gotten a fatal warning? Because nobody's coming clean on this. Would they have seen what you called a fatal warning that they should have stopped and said, uh-oh, there's 5,400 FHE MIP. We need to do something different. Do you know the answer to that?
I wouldn't, because fatals are from IDS, but if it's something that could be put in place to prevent that from happening, you might want to contact them. In terms of LendingQB, I think the only thing we check or warn is, I think if you try to apply and there's no fee selected, it'll warn you that no fees were selected for the COC. So it's kind of like that reminder.
But would it have let them print the form? It printed blank.
Yeah.
Printed blank.
If
would it have let them proceed?
Yeah, LendingQB would have. We have to let them be able to continue.
States were selected for this change.
And is there any way that we can make it that something has to be checked?
Not at this time.
Are you with LQB or are you with IDS?
LendingQB.
Okay, well, let me ask you something else then, since you're with LQB. We're having a problem with the MIP. When these loans are changed from a different program over to like an FHA, why does LQB not go in there and change the MIP?
It should. The one thing that I think might be happening if it's not changing is you need to make sure that this checkbox, override auto-calculated MIP, is not marked. And when you're changing from like conventional to FHA, it does mark this checkbox because it's not sure whether it should be stomping on what was entered. So it errs on the side of being safe. So if you want the correct values to auto-populate, make sure that this checkbox is not marked. And depending on whatever they register, these values will flow over correctly.
Is there any way that you can make that not check that override? Because that is a big issue for when people are changing loan programs, that they don't know that they're supposed to check that box.
And when the MI is supposed to cut off, that is a very big APR problem, very big. Like we'll have an FHA loan, and it'll have the cut off at 60 months. Well, FHA now is 360 months.
I'll have to double check if that checkbox can be set to never be selected, and get back to you.
Because that section, it misses almost every one of our loans up because these originators and processors do not check that. Right now, I'm working on a VA loan that has got the MI cut off at 78%. Well, the VA doesn't cut off at 78%. That's conventional. So I'm wondering why that's even in there.
Okay.
I'm sorry.
Yeah,
I'm getting you with all this.
That's okay. But I mean, in general, though, LOs need to be trained, and I know it's going to be hard, but even if it doesn't have a required field indicator, each of these fields should be reviewed before they run pricing, because like in rural area, that's not required, but it's still like something that should be reviewed to make sure it's correct. So I guess that's just something that has to be like.
Well, see, by the time it comes to closing, it's too late to be reviewed.
Yeah, it's just a matter of telling their LOs that they need to review every single field in PML, especially this one, that it should be left unmarked.
Okay.
But I will check to see if there's any way we can make it so that it's not unchecked.
Yeah, please do, because I guarantee you know the people that are, when they change that no to go in there and do that,
Mm-hmm.
and they do it all the time. They'll set up a loan as a conventional 30-year fixed, and then they'll talk to the borrower, and then later on they'll decide they want to change it to something else. It happens all the time.
Okay. Any other questions?
Excuse me, I didn't see how we sent docs. Oh, you're LQB. How do we send docs to the title company?
So for that one, let's see. Let's just do this one.
Go to close and.
And you're doing the IDS document generation, not the stage?
Well, stage didn't have the correct credentials, so I just went to this one.
What's the difference between stage and the other one? I didn't set anybody up on stage because I don't know what it is.
Let me double check to see what that is pointing to. One moment.
I think the stage is just some kind of test environment, y'all.
Yeah.
We don't need it.
Okay.
All right. So let's see. So when you do generate docs, you have an option to email documents to, and then once you mark this checkbox, it enables this pick from contacts. So you could theoretically choose like your title. Yeah, and if you well, it doesn't look. This one has an email. So if I select this one, the email will auto-populate. That is currently like the one way in LendingQB. IDS might have other recommendations. Maybe they have like another portal, but within LendingQB, this is the only solution or method, rather.
Okay.
When you go into IDS and it brings up the documents, it gives you an option to email them as well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Generate complete package and then create documents. What, is there any place that we can go and write something to, like if we're sending it to the title company? If we're sending
No. What's an example?
You could always generate the documents and then send them through secure docs if you needed to put an email with it.
Okay.
Okay, the documents are, well, you're not IDS, so you're not the doc system.
And you don't know if the correct docs are in IDS yet, right?
For each investor.
Yeah, so yeah, all of that would have to be addressed through IDS.
I sent them a list of all our investors, so as far as I know, they should be in there.
Okay.
Okay, and my other question is, when we go in and make those changes to correct the CD,
what
happens to the numbers that were put in there for the LE?
So
I will say, Tiana, this is a problem we've had a lot, mainly because the people that produce the LE, they'll produce an LE, and what they're doing is right now, the most of the time they've been using DocMagic. They'll export it in a MISMO format into DocMagic and produce an LE. And sometimes they'll change information in DocMagic and it doesn't end up back in LendersQB. Or they'll go in LendersQB and change information and not redisclose through DocMagic. So we end up with wrong information in one place or the other, and we're hoping that the IDS using it all the way through is going to correct that issue.
Yeah, so definitely you guys will always want to use the seamless doc integration because it's seamless. Any changes you need to make to your docs, you have to do it in the loan file. There's no issues where information is changing in two places at once that causes data discrepancy. So to answer your question, if you guys are using the seamless integration from start to finish, we have the concept of what's called a loan estimate archive. And so to explain how it works, when you first generate your initial loan estimate, it's going to be archived. So it's going to be archived automatically, right? So
is there a way that a closer can tell when they go in if a final LE has been pulled on a loan, or you see what I'm saying? Like is there a way that they can go when they go in to do a CD to tell if a final LE was pulled or if they archived it and then they changed figures without going in and pulling a final LE?
Well, I guess in fee audit you could technically compare the current LE with the last disclosed one. So if you did it this way, you would be able to see if there's any differences. Yeah. So the fee audit screen would probably be your best bet for that.
Because we've had problems with them going back in after we created a CD and change the LE.
Who is doing all of this?
Well, hopefully that won't be anymore because we're not going to use Doc Magic. Because Doc Magic, they can go in Doc Magic and change the figures and afterwards. If we're doing the seamless through lender's office, once it goes to closing, those processors and LOs cannot change anything on the file in lender's office.
Yeah. Yeah, so those people should already have lost editing access when it's reached like clear to close. So you shouldn't have that problem anymore because they can't make any changes, so they can't make any changes to docs because they're using the seamless integration. But anyways, as I was saying, when you initially generate the LE for the first time, it's going to be archived. So you will always have a capture of what was initially sent. And then moving forward, anytime you generate a change of circumstance, any fees that you mark to be included on the COC, that will also create another archive. So and then you'll redisclose after that. So the idea is you'll always have an archive for the initial LE as well as an archive for every redisclosure after that. So notice there's 3 of them. I can toggle between any one of these archived LEs and I can see what was disclosed or redisclosed. Does that answer your question?
I don't know.
Basically,
I hate TRID, so what is the next thing you want to say to me?
Basically, that the archive should just capture information for each one of your initial disclosures or your redisclosures.
I'm sorry, can you repeat that?
So the loan estimate archive is going to capture your initial what was on your initial disclosures as well as what was on each of your redisclosures.
So does it automatically archive it, or do they have to go in there and archive it?
It will automatically archive it when they send out initial disclosures for the first time, as well as every COC that they generate. Because the idea is you generate a COC and then you redisclose. So if they follow that process, the archive should represent the information that was on the redisclosure.
Okay.
So for example, okay, notice everything is old 1216, right? So let's just say I want to do a redisclosure. I'm going to hit COC. I'm going to, I don't know, mark the changes I want to be archived, included on my redisclosure. So I want this one on my redisclosure, and I'm going to click apply. Then, so now my COC has been created. If I go back to my loan estimate archive, notice that my LE has now been archived. There's that current 113 archive, and if I generated my redisclosures right now, this is the information that is actually being sent to my doc vendor. Okay.
So if that fee, that box wasn't checked for that $1,500, then that would be something the lender would have to pay. Is that correct?
If whatever I selected was, if everything was left unchecked, my loan estimate archive would not reflect any of those changes.
Can I give you a loan to actually look in?
Sure. I don't know if that's actually tracked in the audit history, so, but we'll take a look.
Okay. The loan number is 46151874. This is the one that was changed from a conventional to an FHA, and the FHA MIP, the box was not checked.
Okay. Let's see. So for this one, if we took a look at the past changes, you're correct. They only typed an explanation of change, but notice they did not mark any fees.
And they said that's all they were trained to do. So can you actually look at the redisplay?
Well, unfortunately, Roberto and none of his group watched the training on how to do an LE.
Which should be required, and they should have to be signed off that they are doing training and any update training, if you ask me. But so can you look at the last disclosed GFE, what it did with the MIP?
So there's one on 1113 and one on 12.4. So is this like the redisclosure? This is the CD? Okay, so 12.4. What are we looking for?
The FHA MIP, the upfront MIP. $5,000.
How much is it? You said it's
around $5,000.
Yeah, okay. No, it's
you can
not
see
there.
It's not there at all?
Well, it should be appearing in this section. Yeah.
It didn't appear on the loan estimate that was last disclosed.
Yeah, so it should be appearing.
Can you look at the fee audit page?
It is on the last one.
It should be appearing in section B, but if I go to my archive, last disclosed, and go to section B, it's not there.
Can you look on the fee audit page?
Yeah, and what am I going to be comparing?
Scroll down to look for the FHA MIP.
Okay.
The first two columns are blank. You're not there yet.
Yeah, so
Right
fees
there.
does not appear in this archive in the initial nor this one as well.
You can see it has in red the tolerance cure 5400.
Yeah. Yeah. So this was definitely not selected in the COC, and so when they sent out the redisclosure, it wasn't included.
So, an input error has caused this issue, right?
Correct.
Well, this is one of the issues that I see. I don't do this part of it, but when you have 2 people or 3 people in our company that are responsible for doing the LEs, that are doing it for all these different people, they're not taking the time to look through it like they would if the processor did it themselves.
Well, Charlie told the LOs and the processors they were going to do their own LEs.
Well, now, but not when this was done.
Uh,
So, I mean, so now they're all going to know this? They're all going to know that they have to check that box?
They've been sent to training.
Okay.
Probably not. Is the box you're talking about the one we just asked if we could turn off?
No, the change of circumstance box. That box right there.
That was reviewed. That was gone over in the LE training. There was about 15 or 16 people on there. I don't think any of Roberto's group was on there. The training was recorded, and I've emailed it out to everyone.
Hey, I didn't get that. Can I get a copy of that, please?
Yeah, I just sent it to the people that are on the production email.
I'm in the production email.
Should have gotten it.
Dan,
But I'll read.
Okay.
We have reached the end of our training time, and I do have another meeting to hop onto. If you have any other questions, just feel free to shoot me an email.
Okay.
Thank you.
Appreciate it very, very much.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Bye. Have a great day, guys.
You too. Bye-bye.